Hello. We are going to talk about the power of story tonight. So imagine that you see something happen. You see two people having a conversation, for example. One looks angry, the other one looks defensive, and you create a story about what you think is happening based on that situation. You may find out later that the situation is completely different than you thought it was. So what happens there? Well, whenever you see something like that, your brain kind of goes into this automatic judgment place and makes an assumption based on something that it thinks it knows, right? So, most cases, if you see someone who's angry and another person defensive, you assume what? That there's an argument happening, that there's something wrong, and that they're fighting about something. But you may not know what's really going on because you're not part of that conversation. But it happens all the time. People make assumptions, people form judgments, people think they know what's happening in situations, and they create a story about it. And then that story becomes the reality that they use to make decisions by, to operate in the world, and to go forward because they don't know any different. So here's some examples of some things that I have seen through coaching where people have made up stories. One, maybe my team doesn't like me. One, maybe I got moved to a new team, so I must be doing bad on the former team. One is I don't think that the other teams around me, my peers' teams, know what I do. So why should I share information with them? Because they don't need to know. There are so many situations where stories are used. And sometimes I wonder, is it just to protect, information, protect what you know, to keep you safe, to keep you from being more vulnerable and opening up and sharing? Or in the first examples that I gave you there, where someone's not liked or doesn't think they're doing a good job, is it because they do feel like they're not doing a good job? They're insecure. And so if they make up a story that says, I'm not doing a good job, well, then that becomes the reality. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what can stories do for you? Either good stories or bad stories. So good stories could mean that you may be thinking you're doing better than you are, and it creates some overconfidence. In my book, a little more confidence than less is always a good thing, though. But it could mean that you think that you're going to get promoted before you're ready. It could mean that people don't see you the way that you see yourself. It could mean that other people maybe don't want to work with you because you feel like you have all the answers all the time and you never let them have a word in edgewise. And so they don't feel like they really want to spend any time with you. So good stories that you create in your head about how you're doing and where you're going can be a good thing, but it could mean that you may be a little overconfident and you just have to check in with that, right? Am I doing the right things? Are people giving me feedback that's kind of not positive? Are people not sharing information with me? Are they not working with me? Maybe that story I have in my head is incorrect. Bad stories can be situations where you almost shut yourself off. You play small. You don't share information with other people because you don't feel like they need to know, or that they're worth telling the information to because your team is better than theirs, for example. Or you may use it as a way to, without realizing it, self-sabotage from getting a promotion. You may put the thought in your head that I'm not good enough. I don't know enough to be able to take that role. I've only got 6 out of the 10 things on the list. And so I shouldn't even go for that role. And that happens so many times. So many people play small because they just don't feel like that story that they have in their head could be anything different. They believe that story so much. And I definitely did this myself. I talk about it in the book where I created these stories, and for whatever reason, I rationalized it. I had opportunities to do something different, but I truly believed that I just wasn't ready for certain things. And so I made sure those things didn't happen by sabotaging it, and not intentionally, but subconsciously I did. And I think some of that was to keep me safe. to keep me hidden, to keep me from getting criticized, to keep me from failing. So stories are so powerful, but it's one of those things you have to do some checking. You have to do evaluation on it on a regular basis because things can change. People can change. Things may not be true. They may not be the way that you see them at face value. They could be something totally different. And so I always try to assume the best of other people. Did they have a bad day? Did something happen before they talked to me? Am I looking at this in the way that I should be? Is there some other reason that they're feeling that way? Before I take it personally, before I take it into me, I always do that because there's so many situations that people just don't know what's going on for other people, right? Someone could be having someone in the hospital. Someone could, have their mother just found out they were sick. I mean, so many things can happen and you cannot always assume it's about you. So when I look at that type of situation that I started out this video with, there could be something totally different where someone's just upset, right? And they just are making it look like they're angry, but maybe they're just upset about something that happened. And it's not worth creating judgment and creating assumptions because you don't know. And so the gist of this video is for you to think about what your beliefs are, what your assumptions are, what the experiences are that you've had with other people, and are they still true? Because what happens is when you run into that person, your brain automatically goes back to whatever that previous situation was. And it uses that to make decisions by, and it creates those same judgments again, even if something's changed. So the reason that stories are something to evaluate and look at, because if the story that you're telling yourself isn't true, and all it's doing is holding you back from being more visible, from taking new opportunities, from getting promoted, from working with someone else, then you have to evaluate. You owe that to yourself. It's your responsibility to look at that and say, is that true for me now? Maybe that was true for me 2 years ago. I've changed, they've changed. I have to at least evaluate it. And maybe that person hasn't changed. But if you don't at least ask the question, you might be missing out on a really good conversation, a partnership with that person, an opportunity to work in their group or work on the project with them. You have to at least evaluate it and see if there's something there to be shifted, to be changed, to put a new thought in your head, a new story in your head that may be a positive one now. So I want you to think about this because so many people operate on automatic pilot and just go with the story that they've lived with for 2 years or 3 years or forever in their lifetime and don't even question it. And all I want you to do is have the awareness that it may not be true and at least question that thought before you believe it and operate and make decisions based on it. You might be actually wrong and it may have changed and you have no idea. But take the time to look at it because it may mean that you're going to miss out some, you may, I can talk. It may mean that you're going to miss out on some great opportunities if you don't at least evaluate it and say, it may not be true for me anymore, or maybe it was true and I'm choosing to believe something else about this person now. I'm choosing to go in open and be more, compassionate about the situation and know that they were under a lot of stress back then. And now they're in a different place and I'm going to be open and not judgment. And I'm going to actually leave that situation in the past. I'm no longer going to see the world with that situation in my head. You get to make that choice every single day about every single person, about everything that you're doing. You get the choice to say, is that thought in my head real? And is it holding me back or is it propelling me forward? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it something that's not true anymore? Or is it still true for me? I know that sounds like that might be a lot of work, right? Because we have thoughts in our head all day long. But the thing that you have to do is really determine for yourself if the thoughts that are causing you to play small are real. Are they the ones that you want to go with still? Or can you shift and look at something bigger so that you might just get the opportunities to work with someone or work on a team or work on a project that might be a great thing for you, or ultimately get a promotion that could take you to the next level. Take your time and look at those and be aware. Not all the thoughts that are in our heads are true, even though we thought they were. Have a good night.